The Gryffindor common room was always the very crowded this day, because from 6 o'clock onward the Gryffindor has nowhere else to go. They also had plenty to talk about, with the result that the common room often didn't empty until past midnight. Harry went to get the invisibility cloak out of his trunk right after dinner and spent the evening sitting on it, waiting for the room to clear. Fred and George challenged Harry and Ron to a few games of exploding snap, and Ginny sat watching them very subdued in Hermione's usual chair. Harry and Ron kept losing on purpose, trying to finish the game quickly, but even so, it was well past midnight when Fred, George, and Ginny finally went to bed. Harry and Ron waited for the distant sounds of 2 dormitory doors closing before seizing the cloak. It was another difficult journey through the castle, dodging all the teachers. At last they reached the entrance, so slipped back the lock on the oak front doors, squeezed between them, trying to stop any creaking, and stepped out into the moonlight grounds. "Course," said Ron, "to the forest and find there's nothing to follow. The spiders might not have been going there at all. I know it looked like they were moving in this sort of general direction, but..." His voice trailed away hopefully. They were Chagrid's house, sad and sorry looking with its blank windows. Harry pushed the door open. Fang went mad with joy at the sight of them. Worried he might wake everyone at Castle with his deep booming barks, they hastily fed him trickles toffee from a tin on the mantelpiece, with clenched his teeth together. Harry left the invisibility cloak on Hagrid's table. There would be no need for it in the pitch dark forest. "Come on, Fang, we're going for a walk," said Harry, patting his leg, and Fred bounded happily out of the house behind them, dashed to the edge of the forest, and lifted his leg against a large sycamore tree. Harry took out his wand, murmured "Lumos," and a tiny light appeared at the end of it, just enough to let them watch the path for signs of spider. "Good thinking," said Ron. "I'd like mine too, but it probably blew up something." Harry tapped Ron on the shoulder, pointing at the grass. 2 solitary spiders were hurrying away from the one light into the shade of the trees. "Okay," Ron sighed, as though resigned to worst. "I'm ready. Let's go." So with Fang scampering around them, sniffing tree roots and leaves, they entered the forest. By the glowing of Harry's wand, they followed the steady tickle of spiders moving along the patch. They walked behind them for about 20 minutes, not speaking, listening hard for noises other than breaking twigs and rustling leaves. Then, when the tree had become bigger than ever, so that the stars overhead were no longer visible, and Harry's wand shone alone in the sea of dark, they saw their spider guides leaving the path. Harry paused, trying to see where the spiders were going. but everything outside his little sphere of light was pitch black. He had never been this deep into the forest before. He could vividly remember Hagrid advising him not to leave the forest past last time he'd been in here, but Hagrid was miles away now, probably sitting in the cell in Azkaban, and he had also said to follow the spiders. Something white touched Harry's hand, and he jumped backward, crushing Ron's foot, but it was only Fang's nose. "What do you reckon?" Harry said to Ron, whose eyes he could just make out, reflecting the light of his wand. "We've come this far," said Ron. So they followed the darting shadows of the spiders into the trees. They couldn't move quickly now. There were 3 tree roots and stumps in the way, barely visible in the near blackness. Harry could feel Fang's hot breath on his hand. More than once they had to stop so that Harry could crouch down and find the spiders in the moonlight. They walked for that seemed like at least half an hour, their robes snagging on low-slung branches and brambles. After a while, they noticed that the ground seemed to be sloping downward. Though the trees were as thick as ever, then Fang suddenly let loose a great echoing breath, making both Harry and Ron jump out of their skins. "What?" said Ron loudly, looking around in the pitch dark and gripping Harry's elbow very hard. "There's something moving over there," Harry breathed. "Listen, sounds like something big." They listened. Some distance to their right, this something big was snapping branches as it curved a path through the trees. "Oh no," said Ron. "Oh no, oh no, oh!" "Shut up," said Harry frantically. "It'll hear you." "Hear me?" said Ron in an unnaturally high voice. "It's already heard Fang!" The darkness seemed to be pressing on their eyeballs as they stood terrified, waiting. There was a strange rumbling noise, and then silence. "What do you think it's doing?" said Harry. "Probably getting ready to pounce," said Ron. They waited, shivering, hardly daring to move. "Do you think it's gone?" Harry whispered. "Don't know." Then, to their right, came a sudden blaze of light so bright in the darkness that both of them flung up their hands to shade their eyes. Fang yelled and tried to run, but not lodged in a tangle of thorns and yelped even louder. "Harry!" Ron shouted, this voice breaking with relief. "Harry, it's our car!" "What? Come on!" Harry blundered after Ron toward the light, crumbling and tripping, and a moment later they were emerged into a clearing. Mr. Weasley's car was standing empty in the middle of a circle of thick trees under a roof of dense branches, its headlight ablaze. As Ron walked open-mouthed toward it and moved slowly toward him, exactly like a large tortoise dog greeting its owner. "It's been here all the time," said Ron delightedly, walking around the car. Look at it! The forest turned it wild. The side of the car was scratched and smeared with mud. Apparently, it had taken to rattling around the forest on its own. Fang didn't seem all keen on it. He kept close to Harry, who could feel him quivering, his breathing slowing down again. Harry stuffed his wand back his throat. And we thought it was going to attack us, said Ron, leaning against the curb and patting on it. I wondered where it had gone. Harry squinted around the flooded ground for signs of more spiders, but they had all scuttled away from the glare of the headlights. We've lost the trail, he said. Come on, let's go and find them. Ron didn't speak. He didn't move. His eyes were fixed on a point some 10 feet above the forest floor. Right behind Harry, his face was livid with terror. Harry didn't even have time to turn around. There was a loud clicking noise, and suddenly he felt something long and hairy seize him around the middle and lift him off the ground, so that he was hanging face down, struggling, terrified. He heard more clicking, and saw Ron's legs leave the ground, too, heard Fang whimpering and howling. Next moment, he was being swept away into the dark trees. Hat hanging, Harry saw that what was hold of him was marching of 6 immensely long, hairy legs, the front two clutching him tightly below a pair of shining black pincers. Behind him, he could hear only another of the creature, no doubt carrying Ron. They were moving into the very heart of the forest. Harry could hear Fang moving into the very heart of the forest. Harry could hear Fang fighting to free himself from a third monster, whining loudly, but Harry couldn't have yelled even if he had wanted to. He seemed to have lacked his voice back with the cur in the clearing. He never knew how long he was in the creature's clutches. He only knew that the darkness suddenly lifted enough for him to see that the leaf-storm ground was not swarming with spiders. Craning his neck sideways, he realized that they had reached the reach of a vast hollow that had been cleared of trees, so that the stars shone brightly onto the worst scene he had ever laid eyes on. Spiders, not tiny spiders like those surging over the leaves below. Spiders saw the side of Curthor's 8-eyed, 8-legged, black, hairy, gigantic, the massive spiceman that was carrying Harry made its way down the steps slope toward the misty, domed web in the very center of the hollow, while it followed close and all around it, clicking their pincers excitedly at the sight of its lot. Harry fell to the ground on all fours as the spider released him. Ron and Fang sat down next to him. Fang wasn't howling anymore, but corn gently on the spot. Ron looked exactly like Harry felt. His mouth was stretched wide in a kind of silent scream, and his eyes were popping. Harry suddenly realized that the spider that had dropped him was saying something. It had been heard to tell but he clicked his pincer with every word he spoke. Aragog! It called Aragog! And from the middle of the mystery dumb web, a spider the size of a small elephant emerged. Very slowly, there was gray in the black of his body and legs, and each of the eyes on his ugly pincered head was milky white. He was blind. What is it? He said, clicking his pincers rapidly. Man, clicked the spider who caught Harry. Is it Hagrid? Said Aragog, moving closer, his milky eyes wandering vaguely. Strangers, clicked the spider who had brought Ron. Kill them, clicked Aragog fretfully. It was sleeping. We're friends of Hagrid's, Harry shouted. His heart seemed to have left his chest to pound in his throat. I'm sorry for not doing this video. Sorry. I'll see you next time. Bye.